So, hello. So, today we are joined by Stephen. Stephen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Stephen Flaherty. I used to work as a learner support assistant for Nottingham College. I was fired back in November because I revealed to a parent that the college was socially transitioning her daughter and was deliberately trying to keep that hidden from her.
Goodness. So, it sounds like you've been through quite a stressful time of it.
Yeah, losing a job's always kind of stressful, and the disciplinary process itself is kind of stressful.
Yeah, really stressful. But obviously, an important thing that parents will want to know about.
Well, yeah, I mean, I thought so. When I first was told basically by another colleague that the college was socially transitioning the child, that was one thing. But then to be told that the mother was not to be informed of it, I thought that was wrong. I mean, it's a case of parental responsibility, and it's a case of the college conspiring with the child to keep secrets from the child's parents. And I thought that was wrong, and I looked at it over I looked at all the relevant safeguarding guidelines and government guidance, the Department of Education guidance, and they all basically said that, yes, it is wrong, that in decisions for social transition, the parent should be consulted except in exceptionally rare cases, and those are actually the words it uses in the guidance, exceptionally rare.
Yeah, so was that research that you did before you disclosed it to the parents?
It was. I researched it, and then I made a safeguarding referral to the college, which they basically ignored. Now, when it became obvious I weren't going to do anything about it, I decided to disclose it to the child's mother myself, and the day after that I was suspended.
Right. So it wasn't like you just went all in, you did your research and you tried to go through the channels that the college had in place to
Yeah, I
raise
did.
this.
I went through the college's safeguarding procedure, although they did argue in the disciplinary process that I might not have done it totally technically correctly, that there were some things I should have done in the process of making a safeguarding referral. But I mean, I pulled them up on that, and I basically said, are they saying they don't take safeguarding referrals seriously unless they're done in the absolute correct, proper format? And when I made a whistleblower referral to the Children's Commission about that, the college was forced to say, the principal was forced to say that actually, yes, we should take safeguarding referrals seriously, even if they haven't dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's.
Absolutely.
So I did make a safeguarding referral, and they didn't do anything about it.
And I would expect in any employment situation that, I mean, I don't know if your role involved making lots of safeguarding referrals, but regardless, you should have support from other people when you're doing that in relation to the process and making sure you do it correctly.
To tell the truth, the college doesn't. I mean, I did contact my line manager, and she agreed that what I'd done was right. Also, because I'd made a safeguarding referral about another member of staff, she agreed that I shouldn't be in a position where I was working with that member of staff. For one, because it would have been awkward, embarrassing, that sort of thing. But other than that, I didn't really receive anything back from the college at all. And the college policy is that if a safeguarding referral is made, then there's no feedback on it. That you just trust the safeguarding team to go ahead and do, whatever it does properly. There's no feedback to say, either you were right or no, we were wrong, we disagree with you. You're just supposed to basically make it and trust them to do what's right. Of course, you can't always do that. The whole point about safeguarding is that it's everyone's responsibility.
Yeah. So how old was this child?
She was 16.
16, so under 18.
Yeah. It's the legal definition of a child in the Keeping Children Safe in Education guidance from 2024 is anybody under 18. There's also safeguarding applies to people over 18 if certain other things apply, and certain other things did apply. I don't want to go into details because I don't want to, allow the identification of the child that easily.
Yeah, of course. So it sounds like it's more complex than just about the age of the child that you are putting in a referral for.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm assuming that the process is all finished now?
Yeah, I was suspended. They held an investigation. They invited me to a disciplinary meeting, which had to be adjourned because they didn't have all the interviews they wanted. So they adjourned it for a while to do another interview, which they should have done during the investigation meeting. And then they fired me. And then I put an appeal, and that was heard just before Christmas, and they upheld it. I applied to ACAS for arbitration, which is a necessary thing you have to do if you want to take them to a tribunal. But I was also hoping maybe they'd be interested in actually, trying it, and they just rejected it out of hand. And so now I'm taking them to an industrial tribunal, which I didn't really want to do, but, left with no other choice now, because they refused to actually listen to what I think are actually genuine concerns about the college usurping and overriding parental responsibility.
Yeah.
It seemed quite serious safeguarding breach, and they refused to look at it throughout the entirety of the disciplinary process, instead concentrating on what I'd done.
Yeah.
Which is fair enough. If they have a problem with what I've done, they have a problem with what I've done. I don't expect them to ignore that, but they could at least look at their own actions as well.
Yeah.
And they'd not do
think that, that would probably need to be a separate process. But, yeah. So, I'm just thinking about this. So it's going to employment tribunal next. Is that the stage where it's at?
Yeah, I have a crowdfunder, because employment tribunals, in one sense they're free because you can always represent yourself. But, if you represent yourself, you don't really have a huge chance of actually getting anywhere. If you want to pay a lawyer to represent you, obviously this costs money, and it actually costs quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I've got a crowdfunder to try and raise money for that. It seems to be doing quite well. I've got over nearly £3,500 at the moment.
Yeah.
Going up. More money will be needed, no doubt, because it takes about a year and a half to get to an industrial tribunal. And, I'm sure more legal expenses will turn up as they come along.
Yeah, they usually do, don't they, when it's legal?
But, I'm taking them to an industrial tribunal. Because this is a whistleblowing thing, I think. I was revealing information to the child's mother that it was unlawful for the college to try and conceal from the mother.
Uh-huh.
And based on that, I don't think they have a right to fire me, and my lawyer seems to agree. So this is basically all it's going to be fought on. But it won't be fought on that for about 15 months to possibly even 2 years. There's a bit of a backlog in the court for a while.
Yeah. So what did they actually give a reason for the dismissal?
They tried to dismiss me on 3 grounds, and one was revealing confidential information to the child's mother, which is, I actually, question that. Well, who is it decides the information is confidential? Who is it decides the mother doesn't have a right to know this? I never actually replied to that. Another one was abuse of the college's data systems, in that I got the contact details of the mother from that, but I'm maintaining that I have a reasonable reason for that. So I would like to make the point then, because a number of people have, on social media, but a number of people have actually said things like, it was bad to reveal this information to the child's mother about the child. But I don't think that's really the way that you should look at it, because I didn't reveal any information to the child's mother that the child's mother didn't already know. She already knew her child with gender questioning. What I did reveal to the child's mother was what the college was doing. I gave her information about the college's behavior, the college's actions, and that ultimately is why it's a whistleblowing disclosure, and that ultimately, I think, is why the college fired me, because they didn't want the mother to know what they were doing.
Yeah, that's just sinister, isn't it?
It is a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
The third one, which to be fair they did drop, was exhibiting views that are in, I'm not quite sure how they put it here, exhibiting views that conflict with the college's values of equality, diversity, and something like that. Which I pointed out basically that, firstly, you can't do that. So you're not allowed to actually discriminate against people for holding a protected philosophical belief. And secondly, that, what views are you talking about here? What exactly is it? And which college policy states that you're not allowed to say or do these particular things? They don't have one, incidentally. And to be fair to them, when it was pointed out that none of this was really doable, they did actually drop that one. So I can't really...
So it was the breach of confidentiality then?
Breach confidentiality, and they tried to argue that it was possibly putting the child at risk from the child's mother. Which, again, I did say, well, you have any evidence for this?
Mm-hmm.
And they never managed to actually provide any. But they said, the argument seems to be that because I didn't know the child's mother might be a threat to the child, then I should have assumed she was, which seems to me really the wrong way round, really. And again, I'll go back to the Keeping Children Safe in Education guidance that states that it is exceptional circumstances. That's the actual wording of the Department of Education there. Exceptional circumstances that allow you to withhold information from a child's parent. And that seems to me that you need some actual proof that it is necessary to withhold this information before you make the decision to withhold this information. It was decided by the college to do this in a 5-minute conversation between the student, the tutor, and another LSA. So they did not have time to gather proof of exceptional circumstances in that time.
Yeah. I would have thought that the safeguarding that you put in, that process should have highlighted any sort of safeguarding risks to the child from any of that.
If it did, they didn't bring it up during any of the disciplinary meetings I held, so I'm guessing they didn't find any. Mm-hmm. And at any rate, obviously, by the time I was put to a disciplinary, the information was already known. And obviously, I don't want to go into details here, but the mother showed not to be a threat to the welfare of her child after she found out what the college was doing with her child. But they're saying that the possibility was there, and I ignored that possibility, which, again, I would say I think is the wrong way around. The mother could have been anything. But they need to prove something. They need to prove that these exceptional circumstances, at least that there's a reasonable chance that they exist, that they actually apply, and they didn't even try to do that.
Well, there's an argument on the other side of it to say that the child's at risk from the mother not knowing about this and what the college was actually doing.
Well, yeah, indeed.
By enabling it.
Yeah, indeed. Again, going back to the Keeping Children Safe in Education guidance, it states that social transition, and this is repeated in the Department of Education guidance in gender questioning children, social transition is not a neutral act. It has far-reaching effects and can have an effect on the welfare of the child, and it should only be taken after consultation with the child's parents and very often other professionals too, by which they mean medical professionals or social workers, people like that. It's not a decision that should be taken by a teacher. It's not a decision that should be taken by a college. It usurps parental responsibility by the college doing that. It overrides parental responsibility when they deliberately try and keep it hidden from the child's parent.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really worrying that that's going on, isn't it? But
well, yeah, it's, I know, it's, a lot of the time people talk about, well, it's a child's decision. It's a private matter of the child. But, I mean, use an analogy, the game one that's often used, we talk about is child's sexuality, say her child was gay or lesbian or something like that, then that could be argued to be a personal matter. You can say that's no business whatsoever of the college, not really any business of the parent, or at least not something you should disclose to the parent. And the Keeping Children Safe in Education guidance does reflect that. It actually says that it's not considered a safeguarding risk if a child is gay or lesbian or bisexual. But it then goes on to say that this doesn't apply when a child considers themselves to be gender questioning. That could be considered a possible safeguarding risk. That is something that could only be taken after consultation with the child's parents, with other professionals as well. And one of the points here is that it's not something that's just confined to the child. Because in order to socially transition a child, the college has to do an enormous amount of work, overturn an enormous amount of its standard operating procedures. It has to instruct, like it did, all the staff to use wrong sex pronouns, to use a different sex name. It has to instruct the students in the class to do all this. It has to enforce that if students or staff refuse to do it or don't do it. And all of this is something that college has to actually do. So you cannot argue it's a private matter for the child because it's not private.
No.
Social transition, by its very nature, is very public.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, it's really chilling. So was the things in the college already before this, the sort of the run up to this, encouraging you to use pronouns in your emails and stuff like that? And
we've never actually I don't think they've actually been encouraged. People do sometimes, but there's never been a staff policy on this. There's never been a thing saying you should put your pronouns here. But it's never been said you can't, which is fair enough. I mean, if people want to do that, they can do that. But they don't force people to do that.
Yeah, I have heard of places where it's been enforced, and that's worrying. Yeah. So, how long had you worked there before this happened?
Since on and off, since about 2005, really.
Right, so you've worked there a long time.
Yeah, I mean, there was a period when I was made redundant, but then I came back to work for them roughly 3 years before I was fired 3 years ago.
Yeah. That's a long time.
It is, yes.
To work there, and
then to be fired.
I'm thinking that you've probably not had any sort of issues before this. You've done a good job, and
really, it was a nice enough place to work. I mean, it was very different 25 years ago, 20 years ago, because all the colleges of further education in Nottingham over the past 20 years have basically all merged together. I mean, when I first joined the college, it was People's College, and they got took over at Broxtowe, and then it was renamed Central, and then Castle College, and then South Notts College merged, and then New College Nottingham. And the upshot of it is that since about a little over 5 years ago, we've had one college of further education in the whole of Nottingham. Whereas previously there was about 5 to 10 colleges. They've all merged together.
Yeah, that's
which makes it more difficult, incidentally, for me to get a job anywhere else, because they're the only college of further education in Nottingham now.
Yeah, that's happened locally to me as well. Like, all the colleges have merged. I think it's a funding thing, isn't it? Less funding around, so they've
larger colleges and get more funding, I suppose.
I think it's just pooling resources as well, and kind of cutting off the excess, make it more efficient.
Yeah, I guess it's that.
Yeah. So you're raising money for lawyers, and you've got a crowdfunder. So anyone who's watching who would like to donate, the link will be in the description, so they'll be able to click on there.
Okay.
Is there anything else that you're looking for, support-wise?
If anybody has any experience going through something like this, I could do with maybe talking to them about their experience. People in similar situations, what have you done? So I don't really know of any other similar cases. I mean, I've seen a lot of cases. Like the third thing they tried to actually charge me with, the exhibiting views, and it went against the college's values of equality, diversity and inclusion. I've seen some cases about that. Belief discrimination, and most of those tend to be won actually by the people exhibiting those views, because you cannot actually maintain that you cannot maintain what people believe. An employer cannot legally say you can't believe this, or that you can't express this belief, except insofar as it might interfere with your work in some way, which of course they've never really been able to do. But most of those tend to get won by the people with the beliefs that the college or the employer is trying to suppress. But this one, as I say, isn't really about that. The third thing there, they did actually drop. So I'm kind of glad for that.
So it's more about confidentiality.
It's about whistleblowing. It's about parental responsibility. It's about whether the college has a right to engage in a course of action with a child and then conspire to keep that secret from the child's parents, which is, I would say, a massive safeguarding red flag. Adults conspiring with children to keep secrets from their parents. It really is bad. It's one of the things you look for when you're looking at safeguarding.
Definitely, I totally agree. But going back to what you said about having beliefs, it's not just a belief, it's actual fact. You can't change sex.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that, but I'm quoting the law here.
Yeah, most of the cases have been won on the fact that you're able to have gender-critical beliefs, but it's a fact, so it's biology. You can't change sex.
I mean, we could wax philosophical here. I mean, even Noam Chomsky said something about how all factual beliefs are actually, all facts are, in essence, basically beliefs at heart. And that includes, he said, the values of the principles of higher mathematics. He said they are still beliefs, even though they are facts. But I mean, we get into a bit of a philosophical argument about what counts as a fact, what counts as a belief. I was talking from a legal point of view, and from a legal point of view, they're beliefs. So, we'll stick with that, I think. But I would say they're facts as well.
Yeah. So what's the future for you then? So Have you managed to find another job or?
I haven't yet. I'm still looking. Like I said, my employer is the only college of further, my ex-employer, sorry, is the only college of further education in the whole of Nottingham. So if I want to get a similar job, I have to travel a little bit further away from Nottingham, which is difficult because obviously my ex-employer isn't going to employ me again. So the nearest place would be 20 miles away, which is a bit far to travel.
Yeah, it's quite a long way.
Failing that, I could always change career, but I'm kind of old, and don't really changing career at my age is very difficult.
Yeah.
So prospects aren't that great.
I used to work with
Re-employment.
people over 50 who are looking for work that either they've been made redundant or they'd lost their job or they were trying to change careers or whatever had happened to them. Yeah, they all had that experience that it was more difficult to get into work when you're over 50. I mean, I don't know how old you are. I haven't
Well, I'm
asked you,
over 50
but
for
yeah.
as you probably can tell.
Okay.
I mean,
Don't like to assume people's age.
it's again, it's one of these things. Legally, obviously, age discrimination is illegal.
Absolutely.
But of course, you can never really prove it, and you get turned down
No.
for a job for 100 different reasons, and there's no way you can prove it's because of your age or anything.
Yeah, I think you've
And
got a lot to offer though, and I think you have to remember that when you're looking for work. I mean, we
yeah,
did this exercise where we did like a brainstorming about the pros and cons of being over 50 and looking for work, and the pros were always longer than the cons.
okay.
But it's about having that self-belief as well, isn't it? And you lose a bit of confidence when you lose your job.
I mean, if you're talking again about starting a new career, it becomes rather difficult because, and I can see the point of view of an employer here. It's because if you want to take somebody on, train them, and employ them, then obviously you want them to stay with you for a fair amount of time. Whereas if somebody's kind of oldish, then they're not going to stay with you that long because they're going to be retiring eventually. So
Well,
it
not
becomes harder to get
necessarily.
a job at that point.
And it actually, the statistics, I mean, they might be a bit out of date, but the statistics that we had back then were that older people tend to be more committed to a job, whereas younger people tend to sort of jump from job to job.
Okay. All
And I
right. So,
mean, careers aren't like that anymore. They're like you don't stay in a job for your
right.
whole career like used to happen. So the job market is a bit different.
Okay. Well, I'll use that argument in my next job interview then, maybe.
Yeah, you've got loads of skills and experience and like that life experience.
Yeah.
It's valuable.
That's about.
Yeah, it's difficult though. I totally understand looking for work and it can be quite soul destroying. And especially if you've got this court case hanging over you as well, that must be stressful.
Yeah, and as I say, these things can take. I mean, the average length of time for an employment tribunal, well, it used to be a year, a little over a year. But ever since COVID, there's been a huge backlog of court cases that still haven't cleared. Even was it now 5 years since COVID, but we've still got a backlog of court
Yeah.
cases. So more like a year and a half, really.
Is that because
So it's
everyone's
going to be
working from
there for a
home
while.
still?
So,
Is everyone still working from home?
yeah, I wouldn't mind working from home. But yeah, so yeah, that's going to be hanging over, for a while. But I'm hoping to kind of shove it into the background, just as and when new legal matters come up. Just do that until a year and a half or so down the line when it actually ends up going to court, and get on with my life in the meantime. I'll do that. Yeah, I think it's an important case though,
Yeah, absolutely.
because I mean, it's not like my ex-employers are the only people who do this sort of thing. In fact, when I was going through the disciplinary process, I was talking to one of the union, did actually represent me,
Right.
units, and I'll give them that credit, although ideologically they're kind of opposed to my kind of point of view. But they did represent me, and one of the guys who represented me did actually say that, he'd had other cases like this, though, in fact, he had one just after he'd been to one of my disciplinary meetings. So, it's not like my ex-employers are the only people to actually do this. And despite the fact the guidance states that people shouldn't do this, that schools and colleges shouldn't do this, they do seem to do this. They do seem to think they have a right to keep secrets like this from the child's parents, even though the Department of Education guidance does specifically state they shouldn't.
Yeah. And they should have a whistleblowing policy as well, which is should have
Yeah, I mean,
been.
I've tried to argue that my disclosure counts as a whistleblower disclosure. Whistleblower disclosure, then I did actually make one in regard to what the college was doing to the Children's Commissioner and also to Ofsted. And incidentally, the Children's Commissioner did back me up and say that they agreed with me, and they forced the college principal to actually agree that the points I was making were right, and therefore that the college officials who were in charge of safeguarding had made mistakes when they made the statements they did. But if you make a safeguarding referral, it's normally to your employer or to a prescribed organisation like the Children's Commission or the Department of Education. But you can also make it to someone else as long as you've tried one of those avenues. Normally that means the media. But I can argue, and I am arguing, that, in this case, making the disclosure to the child's mother was appropriate. And we'll see how that goes down in court. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to find out what happens. Yeah. Although stressful for you, so it's not good that you're having to go through it.
Well, no, it's not. But, you do these things.
Yeah. So was there anything else that we've missed or that you wanted to talk about?
Well, usually, I think I've covered most of the basics of my case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so shall we leave it there then? Because I think it's been quite an intense, information sharing.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for sharing your story and coming on the podcast.
Okay. All right. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Let's get the news out.
All right. Yeah. Thanks.